Good evening, friends. Thank you for being here. This is a new experience for me. It's a new experience for people's rights. And my name is Ammon Bundy, if you don't know. Anyway, I just want to thank you for being here and taking the time to tune in, if you will. You can, first of all, I want you to know that it is live. This is a live. So if I trip on the set and fall, you'll see that. We'll try to use good language as always, but we are live, and so again, a new experience for us. You can communicate with me a couple different ways. You can ask questions through Facebook, Twitter, and chat roll, and you can also, and you'll see that down below here, where you can chat and communicate back and forth. We'll be going through some of your questions later on. And then also you can text questions to 208-996-0177. So feel free to participate and ask questions, and we'll address maybe some along the way, but most of them or some at the end. Of course, we won't have time to or be able to address all of them, but some of them we'll try. So what is this about? We wanted to address what is the current state of affairs in the United States, and also what should we be doing. I will note that People's Rights is a network. It's not so much an organization, it's more of a network. And it is, we're all across the United States now. We started in March or April, right around there, and we have grown to over 37,000 people. And we're in every state in the union, and some states have thousands and other states have hundreds, but that's where we're at. And so I'm going to go into my presentation right now. I want to talk a little bit more about people's rights, how to join. Many of you actually listening might not be part of people's rights. You can join by texting rights to 80123. Text 80123, or go to peoplesrights.org, and that is plural, peoplesrights.org, and you can go to the join button there. We only ask the information that we need. We don't even ask your address. We ask, you have a little map there, you select what area you live in, and that's how we put you in the areas. Once you've signed up, again, like I said, you become part of the community of like-minded people in what we call an area. Your contact information becomes available to area assistants, but not to everyone else, just the area assistants. If you need assistance, so this is the benefit. If you need assistance in defending your rights, you can contact your area assistant, and you can do that by texting AA back to the People's Rights number you have been receiving text messages from. You should have received a text message if you're part of the system today about this webcast. You could just text AA back to that number, and it will give you a list of your area assistants. And if you text AA back to that number and nothing comes back, or maybe just one name, that means you have a lot of work to do in your area. That means you have to get more area assistants, because there should be 3 to 5 area assistants in each area. And they should be active in, having meetings and, basically knowing your needs and if anything is happening to you as far as your rights go. Another way is you can log into peoplesrights.org, and you could call directly through just their phone number. You could also use the app to text, email, or secure message the area assistants. And this is so, like, if you have a need, if something is happening to you, whatever it might be. We've had incidences all the way from CPS taking children to hospitals taking newborn babies to, somebody was being suppressed from voting. All of these things are appropriate when it comes to activating the People's Rights Network. The area assistants, again, 3 to 5 in each area. They assess the violation and activate the people to defend your rights. That is basically it is. We call it it's like a neighborhood watch on steroids. And it is so you can be connected with your neighbors in your community. You can communicate with them, but also there's gatekeepers with the information, so you don't basically have to have your name and information out there to everybody. So again, the way the area assistants communicate with everybody else in your area, there could be hundreds or there could be thousands. They could text message all the people in your area. They can email them, or a secure message, which is unique to our system, where they can actually message inside our server, and it never goes out to another, provider like a cell phone provider or nothing. It always stays secure within our system. Or of course they can just call people because they have that list. And we're working on a voice messaging where it'll send messages and be like 2-minute messages, so you can be more informed by a person with their actual voice and detail. So that's People's Rights. I will say that each person in the People's Rights Network has their own login and homepage, and I encourage you to go to peoplesrights.org and to log in. The first time you log in, you'll have to use your phone number and you'll get an access code. As soon as you get in there, you need to set up a username and password, which just go to your account. And then you could log in like normal using that. If you ever are locked out, it can send you another access code, or if you forget your username and password, take care of it that way. But there's a lot going on there. You can see your area assistants, and we are working on so you can post information on the homepage and share it with all the other neighbors in your area. And so we're not done that with this, but we are working on this. We want you to get excited about that so that you can actually post things, and all the other people in your area, whether it's 200 or 1,000, or even some areas I was looking, they're pushing 1,400 people in their community. You'll be able to communicate with them, and that's for anything. That's for, hey, I need help. That's for, anybody want to babysit, or hey, I'm selling my vehicle. It's basically a community platform inside People's Rights where we can really be a community and work with each other and look after each other. So that's People's Rights. There's many things that are happening, but mostly we're looking out for each other. We're uniting neighbors to look out for each other. And I'm going to go into a little more of the reason why. But before I do that, we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in the country, voting. But I'm going to turn the time over to my friend, Diego Rodriguez, and he's going to cover some of this.
Okay, everybody. So thank you again for being here with us. I'm not going to take very long here. I just know this is kind of the elephant in the room about the election going on here in the country, and then we'll bring Ammon right back up to talk about people's rights. So go ahead and bring up my presentation because I don't want to take too long. We want to get right into this because you guys know we had an election 2 days ago or 3 days ago now. Times I can't even know. I'm not even practically sleeping. It's so crazy. So the election has been absolutely crazy. We knew this was going to happen. I don't think there's anybody on our side of the aisle who did not know that this was going to happen. We all knew this was going to happen. Trump knew it was going to happen. We do believe, I personally believe, I know Ammon can concur, that whether Trump wins or not, I mean, it is important. And I want Trump to win. After all, I am a Mexican for Trump, as you can see right here. So yes, I voted for Trump. I want Trump to win. But my life is not dependent upon whether Trump wins or not. And I'm going to make sure that we're thriving and we're having a great life whether Trump wins or not. Now, that doesn't mean I don't care if he wins, because I do care. But we want to make sure that everybody's equipped with the information and what you guys need beyond just information to not only survive through potentially hard times, but to thrive. So really quick, I want to talk about what's going on here with the election. This is an important quote to consider. This is from none other than Joseph Stalin himself, who did quote this. And yes, this is a true quote. I looked it up myself and found the book where it was written. And he said, I consider it completely unimportant who in the party will vote or how, but what's extraordinarily important is this, and that is who will count the votes and how. And this is exactly what we're seeing going on right now. It's a matter of who's counting the votes. I mean, I don't want to get into all the details about how ridiculous the fact is that in the most advanced country in the world, we are counting votes like a banana republic. I mean, it's like we're a third world country like Venezuela. That's everything going on is both fraud and conspiracy. And I don't mean tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy. I mean straight up conspiracies where people get together and determine and decide to not follow the rule of law and not to do things fairly or justly. And for those who think that that sounds absolutely outrageous, I just want to go through some very, 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 very simple facts about what took place in the last couple of days, what took place on Tuesday, which was, of course, the day that we're supposed to vote according to the Constitution of the United States. I mean, this is a constitutional issue. The day that we vote is in the Constitution. That's how important it was. And here's what happened. As you guys know, Trump was winning in all these battleground states, very specifically Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, and North Carolina. What happened, however, was that states showed Biden, all these states that showed Biden winning in the country, they were all called immediately for Biden, but they didn't do that for Trump. On the contrary, instead of doing that for Trump, they did the opposite in Arizona. They called it for Biden prematurely, which we now know it's probably not going to go for Biden. There's a whole lot of conspiracy and fraud going on in just this list of facts. These are facts that actually happened. This is not my opinion. This is what actually happened. But then here's where it gets crazy. Once these settled states are called, and there's only these handful of battleground states, particularly Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia, they just stopped counting. You probably were watching like my family was. We had a little mini, a watch party at our house there, and we're all watching. They just stopped counting. So we're all trying to look at the same information everybody else is looking at, and they decide, we're just going to stop counting, which they shouldn't do. We're going to see what's going to happen tomorrow. We'll come back tomorrow. Well, we all go to bed, and the whole country goes to bed thinking, Trump won. It's over. Trump won. This is incredible. We're all excited. This is fantastic. But then what happens when we wake up in the morning? Those states, which, by the way, are all run by Democrats who allegedly stopped counting the night before, mysteriously added hundreds of thousands of votes in favor of Biden without even a single solitary vote going to Trump. I mean, that is a statistical impossibility. It's more likely that you're going to wake up in the morning and you're going to see a leprechaun riding on the back of a flying unicorn pooping out rainbows. I mean, it's just not possible. But yet they want us to believe this. In fact, this is what it looks like. This is what the vote count looked like. You can see right here, these votes coming up. And then all of a sudden, boom, this vertical, ooh, I'm coughing. I must have COVID, bro. 6 feet away. So all of a sudden it just jumps up in a straight vertical line. Who in their right mind would believe that? Nobody believes that's even possible. That's Wisconsin. Here's Michigan. Same thing happened in Michigan. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Although I do have to give the props to Biden, because you saw that he changed his campaign logo. His campaign logo is now this. That's his new campaign logo right there. So I think that's pretty awesome. Congratulations to Bo Jiden over there. I said that on purpose. Anyhow, so this is absolutely insane. Now what happens is we wake up and the media begins this nonstop coverage about how the Republican candidate is turning things, or excuse me, the Democrat, in this case Biden, turned things around these counties, and he's going to eke out this win, blah, blah, blah. But what happens terribly is that the media starts squashing any and all mention of voter fraud on all channels and mediums. And when I say all channels and mediums, I mean the president himself got censored by Twitter. In fact, go onto his Twitter feed right now, and more than half of all of his tweets in the last 48 hours say this: some or all of the content shared in this tweet is disputed and might be misleading about an election or other civic process. Can you imagine our president? I don't care if it was Obama. I don't care who it was. When the president of the United States isn't allowed to speak on a public platform, that is absolutely ridiculous and disgusting. And this is what's going on right now in our country. Beyond that, if you want to talk about fraud, we have examples of dead people voting. Now, this is nothing new. Democrats have been doing this for years, and we all know it. But let me just give you an example of a place. Bring out my laptop over here. You guys can come over here to libertybugle.com. So if you just go to Liberty Bugle, you can see it right there, and libertybugle.com is the web address. And you'll see here is William Bradley from Michigan, died in 1984. He just voted for Bo Jiden. Now, the reason why I want to give you this link is you can actually test this yourself, because there in Michigan, They actually have a system that allows you to look up your information on the internet, and you can click it yourself and test it. So you can go right here. Those are just ads. Well, that's a pretty ugly ad, right? Big old toenail. But you can test it yourself. There's a link right here. You click on that button, you go straight to it, and you can enter the information for this fella yourself and see that he voted for Bo Jiden. Now, bring it back to me. If he voted for Bo Jiden, that means we got a 118-year-old dead guy voting for the Democrats. This is the kind of crap that's going on right now. We got Trump ballots being found in trash cans. I mean, go ahead and bring up my laptop again. Here's examples of a bunch of ballots just found in the middle of a field somewhere. We're finding all these big piles of Republican ballots just completely missing. And in Arizona, by the way, we have friends who are in Arizona. Even if you go in person to vote, at least in the county that I'm aware of, you take your ballot that you voted for in person, put it in an envelope, and then you just drop it in a box. And then they're supposed to collect it later. What is that? I know you guys have seen that they were giving Sharpie pens to people there in Arizona to ensure, because if you use a Sharpie pen, the machine doesn't read it. And so they're bringing people in who they knew were Republican voters or in those Republican heavy counties, and they're giving them Sharpie pens. I mean, this stuff is just, it's on and on and on. Now, this is where it gets crazy, because there's an old saying, and it's not even an old saying, it's just kind of common sense. You know who's telling the truth, you know who's lying by the way that they act. So you can determine who's telling the truth and who's lying by the way they act. Well, what are the Democrats doing right now in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and Wisconsin? Well, in Pennsylvania, the Democrats are suing to block Trump observers from watching the ballots being counted. Now, you guys need to know, all across America, this is part of election law, that both parties get to have people who are observers from their party watch the process of the ballots being counted. So Democrats get to have people in Idaho, for example, watching the ballots being counted, and vice versa in all states, not just because we're a Republican county or a state rather. But this is just simple election law. Well, they're suing to prevent it from happening. How is that possible? Furthermore, President Trump's campaign sued, and when they sued, they got an immediate stay from a judge. So they have an order from a judge demanding that they let them in, and they still didn't do it. Did you know that, by the way? They would not let them in, even with a judge's order, and now they're suing to block it from taking place. They also covered the windows to ensure that nobody could see what's going on inside. And like I said, they denied Trump's team access even after a judge demanded that they do so. This is criminal. Here's an example of somebody tweeting about this fact. The judge granted them access, demanded, they still wouldn't let them in. This is in Michigan over here. They're boarding up, putting blockades on the windows so nobody can see what's going on the inside. Isn't it obvious? If they're trying to hide, it's because they have something to hide. This is unbelievable. And to take it to the next step, you have James O'Keefe from Project Veritas, whose claim to fame is all the undercover videos that they capture of people doing bad things. And he has caught multiple instances of fraud on undercover cameras. And yesterday, they published the audio of a whistleblower from within the United States Postal Service describing fraud going on in Michigan. It's a short 2-minute clip. I want you to see it for yourself so you know what's going on. So play the USPS voter fraud video.
Tell us where you work.
I work in the Traverse City Post Office, more specifically the Barlow branch.
Your boss told you and your colleagues something that shocked you this morning. What was it?
We were issued a directive this morning to collect any ballots we find in mailboxes, collection boxes, just outgoing mail in general, separate them at the end of the day so that they could hand stamp them with the previous day's date. Today is November 4th, for clarification.
Who is your boss, and what is his title?
Jonathan would be a direct supervisor, yes. As of right now, he is the opening supervisor for the Barlow branch post office. So and this is anecdotal, carrier down in another office said they watched the postmaster doing it. If it were just a typical day, it would be clerks doing it up at the distribution center.
So 8 p.m. election day, November 3rd, the Court of Appeals ruled ballots have to be received by that time. And what were you told?
To separate them today so they could mark them with yesterday's date. and send them through the express system to wherever they needed to go.
This appears to be an attempt to circumvent Michigan law and allow late votes. And you said there was a hamper where letter carriers were supposed to leave their ballots. Where are the ballots now?
They were putting them into express bags to go to the distribution center. In regards to a hamper, there was a standard hamper that all letter mail is supposed to go to, and they had a tub next to it that we were supposed to put any ballots collected today into.
Yes. What made you come forward?
That's sketchy. I don't like sketchy. It screams corruption. Also, knowing the post office's leanings politically, it didn't seem quite right.
What is your message to other postal workers who see things like this?
Report it. How are we supposed to have any integrity in this country if we are just going to let things slide based on a scaling issue?
Are you afraid of retaliation against you?
I've had whistleblower policies backfire on me in the past, so yes.
We'll have to reach out to Jonathan Clark for comment. Hey, is this Jonathan?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm a reporter with Project Veritas, James O'Keefe here, and I have information that you guys have been stamping ballots with the previous date, November 3rd. He just hung up the phone on me. He just hung up the phone on me.
Well, how do you like that? He calls the guy who's in charge, calls him out on the carpet, guy just hangs up on him. Yes, this has been turned over to the authorities, but again, do you trust the authorities? Who contacted James O'Keefe, and what he has published is that there was, I don't know what you call him, some inspector who's in charge of the United States Postal Service there in Michigan who said it's his jurisdiction, he's going to be looking into it, investigating. But the point, of course, is that if you and I know this has happened, you and I have this information, so does President Trump and his team. There's one more we'll show you again here really quick, and this is actually another worker in Michigan who, well, I'll let the video show you. It's, again, a short clip, 90 seconds, I think, maybe 2 minutes, but the video speaks for itself. So go ahead and play the Twitter video.
Yeah, where can I find a handful of them?
I don't know, man. Hey, I'm almost finished with the boxes today.
All right, brother.
Hey, not a problem, man. I'm gonna see if I can get you some like a little nice little handful. What's your unit number?
You're gonna get a handful?
What's your unit number?
322. You gonna get a handful?
I'll probably put I don't know, maybe. If it's in there, I ain't do it.
And you'll put some in there for me.
I might, man.
All right, brother.
See what I can do.
A postal worker in Nevada offered our undercover journalist a handful of ballots that was sent to the wrong address. This is another example of USPS voter fraud.
Project Veritas have posted a story in the last couple of hours that alleges some cases of voter fraud in Michigan. Have a look and make up your own mind.
So 8 p.m. Election Day, November 3rd, the Court of Appeals ruled ballots have to be received by that time. And what were you told?
To separate them today so they could mark them with yesterday's date.
Some of us got some extra ballots and stuff. How many of those you getting lately? People with extra ballots are undeliverable or whatever.
It's been quite a few.
Quite a few?
You know, people are sending based off their old address. So, yeah, it's been quite a few.
Well, if it wasn't me, though, hypothetically, though, it could be done.
I can't say that because I don't know. I'm just a delivery.
All right. But there's a lot of them out there like that, though, right?
Yeah, there are.
Where's the most of them at then? If we were hypothetically...
A handful?
Yeah, where can I find a handful of them?
I don't know, man. Hey, I'm almost finished with the boxes today.
All right, brother.
Hey, not a problem, man. I'm gonna see if I can get you some like a little nice little handful. What's your unit number?
You gonna get a handful?
What's your unit number?
322. You gonna get a handful?
I'll probably put I don't know, maybe. If it's in there, I ain't do it.
And you'll put some in there for me.
I might, man.
All right, brother.
See what I can do.
Well, that video speaks for itself. You can see all of it yourself at projectveritas.com. Just Google it or just type it into your web browser. You can check his Twitter feed right now so you can see everything that's happening live and in real time. But this is going on in our country, people. It's unbelievable. And the question I want to ask you is this. Can you just imagine that it was the other way around? I mean, imagine if it was the other way, that there was a Democrat who was leading, and then in all these Republican states that were battleground states, They stopped counting the votes, and then overnight we miraculously found, 100,000+ votes for President Trump. I mean, the liberals would already be rioting in the streets. They would be lighting buildings on fire. They would be looting, and like we had posted on our blog, they'd be killing whales and dolphins in the streets of America. It would be completely insane, but we're not supposed to question this. Any mention of fraud is being snuffed off of the internet. It's absolutely ridiculous and disgusting. So it brings us to the question, okay, Diego, what do you guys think we should do about all this stuff? Well, to be honest, there's not a whole lot you can do. So what you need to do is you need to take care of you, yourself, and your family. Obviously, always pray. There's power in prayer. We believe that, so pray. We also think you need to join the People's Rights. Most of you guys here on this webcast know what People's Rights is. If you don't, Ammon's going to talk more about it. He talked about it already. He's going to give you guys a little bit more details. But do some basic things just to always be prepared. Like a good Boy Scout, be prepared. Stock up on the basic things. Have food, water, etc. for your family. Batteries, ammo, all that kind of stuff. Guns, cold, and groceries, as they say, right? Seriously, make sure you guys have the basics for you and your family. I would encourage people to have at least 1 month of living expenses available for you in cash, because you don't know what type of systems are going to be available for you if we have some type of major infrastructure problem here in America. Move to Idaho, people. I'm not serious about that. No, but seriously, if you're liberty-minded, man, why? Because here's a question somebody asked me one time, brother. He said, when all the proverbial you-know-what hits the fan, do you really want to be living in L.A.? When all of your neighbors are going to steal from you, kill you, and do everything else? Or do you want to live around people who believe in property rights and property value, and who believe in protecting those rights, and have 2 years of food in their house? You know what I'm saying? But no, don't move to Idaho. We're tired of people moving to Idaho. Too many people have moved here already. But seriously, go ahead and move here if you're liberty-minded. I'd love to have you as our neighbor. So, ladies and gentlemen, we just wanted to give you a real quick update. You can go ahead and get rid of my screen there. On what's going on in the country right now, because obviously this is the elephant in the room. I don't know how anybody is paying attention to anything other than this. We do recognize anything is possible. Anything could happen at this point, but we want you guys to be prepared and to know what's going on information-wise. In the end, if Trump wins, I'm still believing that he will. Hey, you guys know I'm for Trump over here. If he does not, though, I'm going to still ensure that my family is protected, that our rights are protected, and that we're involved in a network like People's Rights to ensure that we're protected long-term going forward. So, without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring back up our man, Ammon Bundy.
Thank you, Diego. I appreciate that. And thank you for, again, for listening and watching what's going on. We felt it was important to kind of do an update about the election. I know it's all over the media. It's all over everywhere. But we wanted to just make sure that those that might be hiding in closets, those that might be uninformed, are informed about it. To me, or I should say, elections mean different things to different people. What's happening now is just evidence of the deterioration of our nation, of our social structure that was founded clear back in the 1700s by wise and good men who loved God. It is being deteriorated, and it has been deteriorating for some time. So it's not a surprise I guess to me, that this is happening, although it is sad to me. And I'm going to, again, get here to what I was going to talk about. If you want to go to my screen here. So, I do want to, and I'm not a person who likes to, pat our own back or whatever, pat my own back, but I will say this, that we have been saying for a long time that what is happening today is going to happen with the elections and many other things. And I want to say that hopefully to build some confidence. We've documented it, we've written about it, we've done videos about it, and unfortunately, we believe that what is going to happen, we are correct in as well, which is part of the reason why I'm here. Now, I will say this, that there is no reason for people to be afraid. No reason whatsoever. We shouldn't be afraid. We should be, let me get through this. We've already seen this. We should have enough faith and we should act on our own enough that we are not afraid. Fear comes from Satan, faith comes from God, and you cannot have faith and fear in the same place. It's impossible. So fill your heart with faith and understanding and knowledge, and you will not be afraid, and that's what we're here to. So question is when confidence in the current power structure is lost, it leads people to seek security from a different source. Now I'm going to be doing a lot of reading here during my presentation, if you will, and so just bear with me. It might not be the most exciting thing, but I'm not here to entertain you. This is not a webcast to entertain you. It is a webcast to inform you and to help you understand what are the solutions here and what is going to happen. It's not to create fear, it's to create you an opportunity for you to act, to be informed. So if you go back to that, the question again, when confidence in a current power structure is lost, it leads people to seek security from a different source. Now this can be a good thing if those in power are acting criminal, which in many cases those in power in our country and many other countries are acting criminal. They're not acting for the benefit of the people. However, voter tampering is one of the most notorious ways for people to lose confidence in a representative government. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted Diego to go through that stuff, so that you can see and understand that there are some serious voter tampering that's going on here. And ultimately what that translates to is people losing confidence in the current power structure, in the current social compact that we have. Once confidence is lost, it is almost impossible to restore back. Now, my personal belief, and I'm not saying you have to share that, but I'm like right on the verge of whether I believe that we can be restored back to our current power structure, and it can be corrected, and the corruption can be cleaned up. And I know that, George Washington stated that we should set up a structure that can be corrected by wise and honest men. I understand that, and I think for the most part over the last 230 years pretty much we have done that, but we have deteriorated to a point over really the last 100 years that I'm not sure that we can return to. And now we're at the point where we're like acting like let's say the Philippines on their elections. And I know that because I had a brother and a sister that served an LDS mission in the Philippines. And they were there for, my sister was there for 18 months. My brother was there for 2 years. And each time during the elections, they actually had to pretty much stay inside. Sometimes the campaigns would run into each other and there would be a gunfight. And that's the type of stuff, I mean, I know we're not quite there yet, but remember, we're the largest power structure that's ever been established in the history of the world. The most wealthy. We've accomplished more than any other nation ever in the history of this world. There have been some pretty powerful nations, pretty powerful kingdoms, but none that have been so influential and so successful as ours. And so, our shooting each other on the street might look a little bit different, and it actually might come to that. But really what's happening is it's almost like right is might when might is right, when you're in those third world countries like the Philippines during the elections. So once the people have lost confidence, it's almost impossible to get back. And the lack of confidence gives criminals a pass to riot, to loot, to steal, to kill, to rape, and also to enslave other people. And many times criminals unite faster than good people, and the good people suffer tremendously because of this. So the key in this I want you to listen to clearly, very clearly, because I believe that this, what we're talking about here, is going to happen. And I'm not trying to scare you. I just believe that because of what's happening with the voting, and I'll give you an example. Okay, so the networks like Fox and I know others in Arizona, they actually began broadcasting and reporting that Biden won Arizona before the polls were closed. Now imagine what that does for everybody who might be voting for Trump. Maybe they're at home and they're getting ready to go to the polls, and they go and they say, they look on Fox News and it says that Biden's already won Arizona. And they're like, there's no use for me to go. So they don't go. Or maybe they're in line. Or maybe, like most people do, or a lot of people do, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of people do, they want to always be for the winner. So they see that Biden is winning, and so that sways them, and that's what they do. Either way, there's lots of implications to reporting that a certain candidate won in a certain state before the elections or the polls are closed. It's a devastating thing, actually. But the problem, I think, is even worse. The problem with this is even worse, or maybe not so clear, when you look back on it. Because now they can't correct those votes. They cannot, or they cannot correct the person who stayed home. And so no matter what, even if Biden does win Arizona, Trump is going to dispute it. And the people who are for Trump are never going to accept it. They're never going to accept that Trump lost Arizona because of things like what is happening, missing counts, missing ballots, all of that. And then on the other side, if Trump succeeds and wins, we know that the Biden campaign and the people who are for Biden are never going to accept it. And that's a problem because they've lost confidence in this current power structure, and that causes chaos and disruption. And people say, "Hey, that the power is not there, so we're going to seek security from a different source. We're going to seek it from a different source." And that could look like like a gang getting together and they start looting and stealing to feed themselves, or that could look like people like you and I who have families uniting together and figuring out a different way to defend ourselves. When we lose confidence in the power structure, we seek other ways to find and defend ourselves. So that is what will happen, I believe. I believe it's inevitable. I don't see how you get out of it. I just don't. And so that's going to bring a lot of chaos. And back to the key that I really want to make, the key point that I want to make here, and that is to defend against criminals during a power vacuum, which is what we're about to experience, is to unite quicker and stronger with your neighbors than the criminals can unite with each other. That is the key. That the good people must unite quicker, stronger, be more prepared, and have more resources and ability to defend themselves and to be independent. They must be much stronger than them. So I don't know what happened to my screen here, but there we are. Sorry. So remember that is the part of the key of what I'm trying to say here, is that you must, as a people, be prepared to unite. You must be uniting now. And of course, this isn't an infomercial for People's Rights. People's Rights is a network. It's not really an organization, although we're organized. It is a network. It's not a hierarchy. It's where it gives you the tools to the local people to be able to unite with your neighbors and communicate quickly, so that if there's looters, or if there's a riot, or if there's even worse in your neighborhood, you can communicate with each other and you can defend each other. Now, it doesn't just go for looters and rioters, because there's all kinds of criminals. And I like to define them in two different ways. There's street criminals and then there's government criminals. One steals your purse and the other steals your country. And People's Rights is organized, and the network is there to defend against both. And how we do that? How it's always been done. We unite with good people that we love and appreciate. We defend them, and we defend each other. So now I have a video here. If you could play the video for tyranny. All right, so there you have it. That is the question. How do we defend our loved ones against tyranny and also against anarchy or chaos? Some people don't like me using the word anarchy, and I get that. I don't want to offend you because anarchy means a lot of different things to different people. So to some people it means self-government, and I'm absolutely for self-government. To other people it means chaos and disruption and no law at all. So don't be offended by me. I did use anarchy. I will continue to use anarchy because most people look at it as chaos. And until I get a better word from my anarchist friends who don't believe in chaos, do not believe in harming people, who just believe in self-government and believe that that's what anarchy is, because by definition it really is that. Until they give me a better word, I'm going to use anarchy. But the solution to this is uniting together with each other. Government in its premise is just simply an organized way to defend ourselves. Now it's, when it gets funded like our government does, when they start taxing and taking the people's fruits of their labors to themselves, and they start distributing wealth and all that, then it becomes something much different than just defending there as an organized unit to defend rights. But that is what it is for. And now, in the same idea, with the same thing happening, People's Rights is organizing people, or giving tools to organize in your neighborhood. And I'm going to talk a lot more in detail here about a little bit about where we're at, and kind of get off the People's Rights bandwagon here. But I do ask you to join if you haven't, to get your neighbors to join, and don't think that this is a hierarchy where I'm organizing everything in your area. That's just not going to happen. This is tools that we have built for you to use in your area, and the success of your area depends upon you, and we will help you with that, but basically it depends on you, and you need to get 3 to 5 area assistants in your area. And you need to start meeting together, communicating together, gathering people together, as what is happening in many other areas, and it's a wonderful thing. We truly know, not just believe, we know that we have turned the basically power structure of Idaho around when it's come to this COVID stuff. And the people in Idaho are more free, more mask free, more free to travel, more free to go to church, more free to do all those things because of People's Rights, the thousands of people that are in People's Rights. And I'm just talking from Idaho because I know personally, I live here, but I know Washington, Oregon, Montana, Florida, Utah, and forgive me if I don't mention all the other states. I know they have made a huge difference there as well. So peoplesrights.org, or text rights to 80123 and join with your neighbor in defending rights. Now, let's talk about, get off this here. Let's talk about nationalism, socialism, or communism. All the same direction. I got to back up here. Let's see, I don't know why I'm skipping one of these. I'm skipping one of my pages. Do you know why? It's probably just me. Let me keep going through here. I'm not much of a professional here, so I'm pushing buttons and no, interesting. Oh well, we can move on. So I'll just read it here. It'll look like I'm reading. So, nationalism, socialism, or communism. Let me get. There you go. No, that's not the one I'm after. Okay, yeah, it is. Sorry, my bad. We'll get this straight. Your life experience and who you listen to shapes your thoughts and what is good and what is bad. It's just the fact. The way you grew up, whether you grew up in the city or on a farm or you grew up in the suburbs or whatever, it shapes you. And also who you choose to listen to. The books you choose to read, what you choose to listen to on social media, your parents, they shape the way you think about good and bad. or what you think is good and bad. And some people believe that socialism is good. Some people believe it is terrible and destructive, and the same with communism. Others believe that nationalism is patriotism, or that the country should come first. They really believe that nationalism is patriotism. They believe that the country should come first no matter what. Now, the interesting thing, and I'm going to get into this a little bit more, but the Association of German National Jews was a German Jewish organization during the early years of Nazi Germany that came out in support of Hitler. In fact, they called themselves, in a different language, Jews for Hitler. Imagine that. So I want to point out here how nationalism, socialism, and communism lead to the same direction. Now let's go to a document that's available to everybody from the Nationals. It's called the National Socialist Program. And the National Socialist Program has 25 points, and it basically lays out what the National Socialist German Workers' Party wanted and then implemented. Adolf Hitler announced the party's program on the 24th of February in 1920. There was thousands of people there. And within the program was written, the leaders of the party swear to go straight forward if necessary, to sacrifice their lives in securing fulfillment of the foregoing points, and declare the program unalterable. So you see how important it was to them. They were willing to give their life for these 25 points in this program. Historian Karl Bracher, he said, ideologically speaking, the program was woolly electric mixture of politics, social racist, national imperialist, wishful thinking. So he's just pointing that out. Now, I want you to understand that I'm not here to be another person that's saying, oh, look at what Hitler did, and so that's what's happening in our country, and so therefore, you know, we're basically Nazi Germany. Because that's not exactly what's happening, but I'm presenting you this information so you will learn and see. Because I believe by seeing this, you'll be able to more clearly understand who is an enemy to freedom and who is not. And it's not necessarily exactly happening over again, although a lot of it is, and you'll recognize that. But the point here is to educate you on and give you information really on what has happened, what were their goals, and how these were people who were also nationalists, they were socialists, communists, and how they're all wrapped up into one and their goal is the same. So this is, again, this is in the point. It says, well, I'm going to skip through some of this. I'm going to go down to the second point here. I just talked this Austrian monarch, which Eric Linden or whatever, proposed that the 25-point program was for the people. He actually proposed it, that it was for the people, for the pro-laborer. That's important. Down the next point, in the hope of winning the farmer votes in May of 1928 election, Hitler disguised the implicit characteristics of the point 17 of the National Socialist Program and assured them that their farms would not be nationalized. So here are some points in the program. We demand the union of all Germans to form the Greater Germany. Okay? Again, a nationalist statement that all Germans are demanded to unite for a Greater Germany. Not for the betterment of the people, but for the Greater Germany. It goes on the basis of people's right to self-determination enjoyed by all nations. Now that right to self-determination might not mean what you think it is. Going on, I'm just going to hit the highlights here. Remember, this is a 25-point program for the Nazi Germany Socialist Party. None but members of the nation may be citizens of the state. Moving down, basically, none but those of German blood. Anyway, they identified that. Whoever has no citizenship is to be able to live in Germany only as a guest and must be regarded as being subject to foreign laws. I didn't make this up. This is their platform. We demand that the state be charged first with providing the opportunity for a livelihood and way of life for the citizens. It goes on to say, if it is impossible to nourish the total population of the state, then the members of the foreign nation, non-citizens, must be excluded. Basically, they must leave. All immigration of non-Germans must be prevented. So they weren't very kind to those who immigrated to their nation, who were there, and weren't supposedly Germans. They weren't very kind to them. I'm pointing this out because they did not view them as people, really. They viewed them as non-Germans. And they didn't view them as having rights, even though they had purchased property and had done all these things. They did not view them as. Because, why? Because the country of Germany, the motherland, was greater than the person. Now, interesting here, all citizens of the state shall be equal as regards rights and obligations. I underlined obligation. It identifies what he means more about this, or what they mean. Remember, this was their platform. This is what Hitler pushed in Germany. This is what they fought and died for and took over a big part of Europe to implement. The first obligation of every citizen must be to productively work mentally or physically. The activity of individual may not clash with the interests of the whole, but must proceed within the framework of the whole for the benefit, for the general good. Okay, remember those terms. That's what we're going through right now. They're shaming people for not wearing masks or not complying to the COVID mandates, and they're doing it, what they're saying, for the good of for the general good, or for the whole. Okay, going down. Abolition of earned work or labor's income. Now this is interesting because that abstract right there, the unearned income, abolition of unearned income. Unearned income is a term coined by Henry George to refer to income gained through ownership of land. Goes on, we demand nationalism of all businesses, right? We demand that the profits from wholesale trade shall be shared. We demand an expansion on large scale of old age welfare. So welfare program definitely in place. Let's keep going. Does some of this sound familiar? Have we done the same thing in our country? Absolutely we have. In fact, almost every point here we have followed and implemented in our own country, our own nation. I didn't know anything about 25 points of the National Socialist Program until recently, but right here it lays it out, and you can see what is happening in our country and how both sides are doing it. Both the Republicans and the Democrats are pushing this, and how the people are left behind, how it becomes about a nation and not about an individual. It becomes about basically those at the head of a nation rather than families, and providing for them families. And so let's go on. It says, we demand the immediate communalization of the great warehouses and their being leased at low cost to small firms, the utmost consideration of all small firms in contracts with the state, county, or municipality. So they're taking the large buildings that were owned by somebody else, and they're basically contracting with the city and the state and the counties to provide housing for I guess what they would call the workers of the state. Going on, we demand a land reform suitable to our needs. Now talk about, who are you talking about our needs? This is the nation's needs, right? It's not an individual's need. It's a nation's need. And that you'll see through this whole thing. We demand struggle without consideration against those who actively so injurious to the general interest. Injurious to the general interest. So we demand struggle without consideration. Common national criminals, users, profiteers, and so forth are to be punished with death without consideration. What does it mean to without consideration? That's without due process. Basically, if they're deemed a profiteer, then they're a national criminal. And they're to be punished with death without consideration. Going on, the state is to be responsible for a fundamental reconstruction of our whole national education program. Sound familiar? I mean, this is exactly what's happening in our country. Now, some points are kind of gray area in our country, but many of these are actually happening, have been implemented. So we look here to the education. It goes on, the comprehension of concepts of the state must be striven for by the school as early as beginning of understanding. We demand the education at the expense of the state. Okay? So they're saying at the very beginning, the curriculum needs to be as early as the child can comprehend. It needs to be that the concepts of the state must be striven for. So anyway, the state is to care for the elevating national health. Right? I think we have a problem there in our own country. We demand abolition of mercenary troops and formation of national army. Now, this basically was any military force or any militia that was not state sponsored. So they absolutely made completely outlawed any militia or any uniting as basically an armed people, or even in some other organization that wasn't state sponsored, which is completely different, right? You can go back here to me. Let's go to the Second Amendment. I like to bring this up as often as I can, because the Second Amendment is not just we get to have our guns. That is not it, although that's part of it. The first part, I think, is the most important part. And it says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. Right? So in order to be free, in order to have a free state, you must have a militia, which is a people. The people must be armed. They must be organized. Otherwise, you can't have a free state. And it's pretty obvious. It's because the government, time and time again, becomes a power structure that can't be trusted. People lose confidence in it, and the people need to be able to defend themselves against that. So, moving on here. This is getting kind of long. I hope you're learning some things here. Again, I'm not trying to entertain. I'm not trying to be too boring, but I'm not trying to entertain. We demand, again, 25 points of the National Socialist Program. We demand legal opposition to known lies and their promulgation through the press. Going on, we demand that all writers and employees of newspapers appearing in the German language be members of the race. Non-German newspapers be required to have the express permission of the state to be published. They may not be printed in the German language. Moving down here, publications which are counter to the general good. Remember, there we go again. Publications that are counter to the general good. Who gets to make the decision? Right? Who makes the decision of the general good? That would be the government. That would be those who are in power. They get to decide, well, this is for the general good. And usually what that means is for their good, for their general good. So publications which are counter to the general good are to be forbidden. We demand legal prosecution of artistic and literary forms which exert a destructive influence on our national life, again, about the nation and not individuals, and the closure of organizations opposing the above made demands. Okay, so basically if they demand, or if they oppose the 25 points of the National Socialist Program, then you can't be press and you cannot publish anything that opposes that. So we demand, so does that sound a little bit like what's happening with Facebook and Twitter? Diego talked about that the president's own Twitter account is being censored. I know people's rights across the country was purged from people from Facebook, and now I believe is being purged from not Twitter but one of the other major ones. Right as we speak, they're deleting counts of people's rights because they do not want us speaking these things. So, moving on, and I'm going to get off this pretty soon, but I want you to see and understand what has happened in the past, how nationalists have put their country ahead of the people, and how we know the history of how damaging and destructive and detrimental it was. We demand freedom of religion for all religious denominations. That sounds so great. Within the state, so long as they do not endanger. So remember, so long, right? As they do not endanger its existence or oppose the moral sense of the Germanic race. Interesting. Okay, it talks about positive Christianity. The party can promote positive Christianity, and then it goes on, is convinced, so basically this church has to be convinced that a lasting recovery of our nation can only succeed from within on the framework of, quote, the good of the community before the good of the individual. That's exactly what I'm talking about. The good of the individual, or good of the community before the good of the individual. That is destructive talk. That destroys. Because you don't have a forest without trees, right? They think somehow that you can have a community without protecting individual rights. And it's about, we could go, you cannot have a strong community, a thriving community with freedom and prosperity and happiness without protecting the individual's rights over the community rights, the communal rights. Okay, for the execution of all this, we demand the formation of a strong central power. That's another key word, because the founders believed in distributing the power, distributing the land and the resources to the people, distributing the voting power to the people, that everything belonged to the people because it was much safer in millions and millions of people's hands than in the collective body of as they put it, a strong central power. That's one of the reasons why we oppose the overreaching of the federal government, because they're taking too much power. That's why I oppose income taxes going to the federal government, because it centralizes too much power and is destructive. They say right here, in order to do all of these things that we want to do, in order to do all of them, we've gone through the 25 points, I think most of them. In order to do that, we have to have a strong central power. We have to consolidate power. Now, the leaders of the party promised, the last thing, if necessary, by sacrificing their own lives to support the execution of the points set forth above without consideration. Now, moving on. And I know you've been with me for a little over an hour. We're going to wrap this up. I'm going to be pretty quick. For the motherland, Soviet nationalism. Basically, that, the fatherland was a national term used by Nazi Germany, but then Russia uses the motherland as a symbol of a country that nourishes and supports its citizens. We see terms in this country called the homeland. That's something to key in on. And that, interesting enough, that is a gender neutral term, right? So the Nazis used fatherland, the Russians used motherland, and now we're basically, it's bad to have non-gender, or gender, so now we're the homeland. And you'll see that quite a bit. Soviet nationalists often use the term fatherland. In fact, in the Pravda, which was the official newspaper for the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, June 9th, 1934, they published an article for the fatherland. And what it was, so here's a picture of that, shows it was very popular. Millions and millions of each week went out. It was very popular, and it was basically the propaganda paper that was owned by the Communist Party and became the official state paper. So In that article that I mentioned in this Pravada, you find the decrees of the Central Executive Committee of the USSR. Okay? It talks about the working people again. It tries to make it look like the people are the ones behind it, that it's for the people. Ultimately, it's not. It says Soviet specialists, for Soviet specialists, there is nothing more beautiful and more clear than their own country liberated from the yoke of landowners and capitalists. Okay? For our fatherland, for our fatherland. The defense of the fatherland is the supreme law of life. Wow. That's to me, that's just crazy talk, but this was what they implemented. This is what was published. And he who raises his hand against his country, he who betrays his country should be destroyed. It's not about people. It's not about people. Today we published the decree of the Central Executive Committee. It goes on. For high treason or for wanting state independence, it's considered high treason. For treason, there will be only one measure of punishment: execution by shooting with confiscation of all his properties. Individual members of his family are also responsible for the acts of traitors. In the case of the escape or flight across the borders of a person in military service, all mature members of his family, if they are implicated in aiding the criminal or knew of his intentions and did not report them to the authorities, are punished by imprisonment for 5 to 10 years with confiscation of all their property. Okay? The other members of the family of the traitor and his dependents at the time he commits treason are subject to disfranchisement and exile to some remote region in Siberia for 5 years. So just for being a wife or a child or whatever of somebody who wants to try to leave the country. Traitors will be punished unmercifully. One cannot be neutral observer where the interests of the country, again, interests of the country or the worker and peasants are concerned. This is a terrible crime. This is complicity in the crime. The decree of the Central Executive Committee gives the workers of the great Soviet Union a new weapon in their hands in the struggle against the enemies of the proletariat dictatorship. For the fatherland, for its honor and glory, might and well-being. Okay? So I'm going to say a few things that you may not necessarily like, or it may be a little abrasive to you, but socialism and nationalism lead to the same place. Anarchy and tyranny are on the same boat. Democrats and Republicans are going in the same direction. And black lives versus blue lives brings about the same thing. And I know that it might be hard for you to hear, but it is the truth. I am certain of it, and I would not stand here and tell you otherwise. I believe that with the life experience that I have had with my family ranching for 140 years in the southern Nevada desert, and then the nationalists and the socialists come to try to take our land, both Democrats and Republicans. It was people who support, who are like Black Lives Matter, if you will, and those who were part of the blue lives that actually came to do it. I've seen it and experienced it with my own life. And when we resisted and said you can't take it, ultimately what they did is collect my entire family in a blood prosecution and incarcerate us for 2 years on false charges. And it wasn't until those individuals were put at such risk from basically the people across this country, put so much political pressure on them that they finally had to release us. And I do believe and know that it was the hand of God that allowed that to happen and that helped that to happen. And that is actually why I'm here today, because I believe where much is given, much is expected. I would much rather be home with my family and my little children and my wife and enjoying them to actually be here tonight. But I feel like it's an important thing to be able to, inform you of some of the things that I have been able to understand throughout these years and experience. And so here it is, like it or not. black lives and blue lives are going in the same direction. Same with Democrats and Republicans. Anarchy and tyranny are the same thing. Socialism and nationalism, it is the same thing. All of them are designed to destroy individual rights, and none of them are for individual freedom. And you must put the individual first. You must. And that makes the collective strong. God gave rights to each person. There was nothing in between. He did not give it to government and then government give it to us. He did not give it to someone who, was in power and then they gave it to us. And so there is nothing in between and nothing more important than an individual's rights. And then the collective, however they decide to do that individually, comes later. Now, I've gone way over my time, but we have questions that need to be answered. And so I'm going to answer them the best I can. I'm not going to be able to answer all of them. I'm going to have to read them here in front of the screen, do the best I can. So, what does it mean to be an area assistant? I'm in Florida and was sent a private message within the People's Rights Network in my area and asked if I will accept being an area assistant. Okay, an area assistant is basically a gatekeeper of the information of that area. So if I text rights to 80123 and I fill out the little form and I ended up in Florida area 2, well, there needs to be or should be area assistants in area 2. They see my information and I can contact them if I'm ever in trouble or in need of my rights defended. And they can also, the area assistants, if somebody else is in trouble, they can inform me through a mass text, email, security message, or phone calls. And so an area assistant has to be trustworthy, has to be someone who understands confidentiality, has to be someone who is liberty-minded, so it can recognize that even though the state or the government is doing something, it may not necessarily be right, and has to be brave enough to activate people in defending that person's rights. That's what an area assistant is. Mostly a gatekeeper, someone who receives information and disseminates that throughout the area and kind of protects the information. Next, I signed up for People's Rights several months ago. I've asked repeatedly what this is about, how it works, if there were meetings. I have gotten nothing. Okay, so I can tell you you're probably in an area, in a state, that is not fully organized. And that might be the case with many of you, because we are needing more people to step up to become area assistants and basically get their area going, get more people in it. In Idaho, for example, the area I'm in Area 3, we have a little over 600 people in our area. And we function, we meet, probably monthly. We communicate quite a bit, and we're active. We'll have call-outs to go do certain things. I'll give you an example. Some might like it, some might not, but that's just the way it is. We had a mother who was arrested at a park during the height of the COVID lockdowns. And we didn't think that was right, so we implemented the People's Rights System, and we went to the governor's house. We issued him or served him with a redress of grievance. We went to the health director's home, and we also went to the arresting officer's house and served him with a grievance from the people. And after that time, the Meridian Police Department decided that they were not going to enforce any of the other COVID mandates. So we made a difference there. Next question. What help do you need and what? So remember, great question. What help do you need and what? So I'm assuming when you say you, you're talking about me. Well, I need lots of help, but not necessarily with my family, not with my community, not with even creating software and tools for people's rights. What I need help with, or I don't really even need help. You need to help yourself. You need to help yourself by getting active in your area, uniting with your neighbors. You could use the tools that we have provided for you in People's Rights, or you can create your own or do it another way. Go around. But you need to know who your neighbors are. You need to know if they're willing to defend you. If you need to know how to get a hold of them, how to unite. You need to be doing that in your areas. So it's not really about what I need. It's about what you and your community needs, and you need to provide it, not me. So, and I'll help, and all the people that I have that are organizing and creating tools will help, and we'll keep providing those tools. But a toolbox, a really great tool in a toolbox that never gets used is no good for nothing. And a tool is only as good as you use it. So that's what People's Right Network is. That's what these tools are. Next question. Is there an app for People's Rights in development? Yes, there is an app in development, but you can also go to the peoplesrights.org. You could save it in your bookmarks, and you could go into it pretty quick and use it. It works great on a cell phone right now. We do plan on having an app where it will give notifications and so forth. We don't have that. That's a lot of work. There's a lot of work in all this. And it's amazing. We have 37,000 people in less than 8 months, more like 7 months. Not even that, really, to be honest with you. And we have created our own software that is very up to date, very high quality software, and that does many different things in just this little amount of time. So we do ask you to be patient with these new tools that we're coming out with, but we're also extremely pleased with the accomplishments that we have and many others. And just so you know, we've all done this on a bootstring, almost with no cost. Now, of course, it costs money to send information out, but we have been able to develop with almost no cost. Okay, next question here. Can you please go over the local elections, where we won, who is now in power seat, where we lost, who we didn't get out of power seat? Most importantly, how will that help or make it more difficult for us to protest, join in on public meetings, and much more, where we denied COVID, so on and so forth. Thank you so much. So again, we're talking to people all across the country. So I don't know your local politics. I will say this. No matter who was elected, no matter, it doesn't matter Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Independent, or whatever else, Green Party, I saw that on doesn't matter. Your rights are yours. They do not belong to a politician. And so you need to exercise your right, because what is happening in our country right now is that those who get in power or are in power, they are confused. They're confused about whose rights belong to who. The right to go to church, they think that it belongs to them, that they can take it or give it. They want to make it a privilege, not a right. And the way you combat that is you go to church and you worship how you choose to worship. That is the best thing. And you ask your neighbors to do the same. And if they won't or don't want to worship, you ask them to defend you for your right, in your right to worship, to travel, to go outside without a mask, without a filter over your face, a man-made filter over your face. These are your rights. They don't belong to anybody else. And the best way to answer whose rights they are is for you to exercise them. You have to say they are my right and claim them. You have to use them and continually use them. Do not let anybody take them from you, and then be willing to defend them. And how far you're willing to defend them, that depends on you. It might be, I'm only willing to defend them $10. It might be, I'm only willing to defend them the cost of attorney. Or it might be, I'm willing to defend them with my life. That depends on you personally. They're your rights. All right, next question here. I've joined People's Rights, but have never connected with an area rep, nor gotten the name of my neighbors. I am trying so hard to find a group. Can anyone help? Okay, again, you are one of those areas that hasn't been developed, if you will, or hasn't been organized with an area assistant. And that means you need to act. That means you need to become an area assistant. You don't join a group, you make a group, and then use the tools that we are providing for you if you want, or you could do it some other way. But this isn't a hierarchy where Ammon Bundy is sitting at the top on a corporate throne. That's not that. We're just making tools and making them available to you where you can unite with your neighbors in your own community. And we will never become a hierarchy, and we're never going to get in the habit of telling other people what to do and how to defend themselves. That's your responsibility. So unite with your neighbors, use these tools if you want. They're awesome tools. Man, you could get 400 or 500 people in there, and all of a sudden you can send a text message out to your neighbors like that. Hey, we need to meet here. We need to do this. Hey, go here, do that. And people respond. They get to choose. Next message. What resource do you have if there is a violation of rights? Again, it's not about me. It's about you. But we do have a lot of educational tools. We have, let me just break it up. Yeah, here we go. I'll give you one resource right here. This is a beautiful gun. Anyway, I'm not implying anything, and so, don't take it too serious. But certainly is a way, right, that a tool that we have, a resource that we have to defend our rights. Now, don't go crazy with that thought, because there's lots of things that we have to do before. One, biblically, and our founders did it in the Declaration of Independence. When someone is infringing upon rights, you have to notify them of that. You have to notify them of that and ask them to stop. Okay, that's if it's not imminent. If it is imminent, then it's obviously different. You have some legal resources that can be drawn on. You have some political resources that should be drawn on in your local community, and you have physical defense that you should be building. But it's not about the resources that I'm giving you. I'm giving you tools to gather the resources. Right? You need people. You need, if you decide to go with a legal defense, which is only part of what you should do, then you need to find out who has some legal ability. You need to find out how to use these things. And I'm not talking about necessarily just going to the courts. I'm talking about a lot of other things that can happen to actually legally defend your right. You need to politically. How do you politically put pressure to defend rights? You have 200, 300 people that show up at a politician's house or the governor's house or the arresting officer's house. All of a sudden things become different. Just the other day, we had some county here in Idaho, Payette County, that was stopping people from going into voting. So we publicized it. People started calling the county. We planned a demonstration there. We made a few phone calls. And lo and behold, the sheriff goes down there, starts making sure people get in. The county clerk makes sure that people aren't restricted, and the county commissioners rescinded their mask mandates to come into the building. All to be honest with you, within 2 days. So that's political pressure. That's what you're doing. That's the power you have when you unite in your communities. It's not about us giving you resources. We might give you information and guidelines and some direction, but it's about you uniting in your neighborhoods and creating the resources in your neighborhoods. And don't get discouraged. It's pretty easy. You go around and tell everybody, hey, text rights to 80123 and unite. Text rights to 80123. Go to peoplesrights.org. There's videos there. There's information there. There's training. There's education. And there's some resources as well. Okay, another question. We're going to have to wrap this up soon. I'm not going to go past 8:30. I wanted to keep it within an hour, so we got 3 minutes. Are people's rights affiliated or side with any militias? I would like info about one that I could join and how. Okay, I would say the answer to that is yes, but not directly. We're actually, these tools are used by militias as well, and if your militias are not using these tools or not benefiting from these tools, then you should tell them about it. But one thing also that I have been informed of when it comes to people who understand about militias and about defense a lot better than I do, and that is they've informed me that the best way to defend yourself is in small units, right? Small units. So your family, they're equipped. Your family is, and maybe a couple of your close neighbors, they're equipped. They're able to communicate. They've got radio equipment. They've got gear to actually defend. And then they're connected with a whole bunch of other small groups, small units, if you will. And so they can act together independently. And so sometimes the idea of going and joining a big militia, need to be a big part of a hoopla, and they have, a really great website, sometimes necessarily is not the most important thing. Remember, militia is the people. Even by definition in federal law, it's someone who's part of the militia is someone between the ages, I think, 18 or 17 and like 65. Any man or woman, able-bodied man or woman. So you don't need to go join a great big militia, but you need to get with your local people, maybe just your family, maybe a few others. Keep it probably under 10 and get yourself equipped, get yourself trained, start practicing, know how to defend a home, know how to defend an area, know how to get your high spots and all of that, and work together as small units, and then communicate with others, people in working together in other small units, so when there's a need to come together. Okay, another question. I'll take two more questions. Actually, no, well, I'll take two more because I said two more, but it's 8:30. What rights do we have if they come to our door for contact tracing and try to force us to take a test or to vaccinate us? What if they declare martial law and the military comes to our door to take our food or supplies? From my understanding, if martial law is declared, we have no rights. Okay, so first of all, do you really believe that you have no rights because another man or another group of men or women says that it's martial law or you don't have rights? You have rights. Now, I am not naive to understanding that your rights can be infringed upon, yes, right? But that's what this is about. This is about you having enough unity in your community that if something that is going on like that, you can quickly unite and combat against it. And that's just the fact. We are in a situation where our government or those who are in power are sorely confused about whose rights are they. They want to put the communal good above individuals. And that never works, and it's always for a nefarious purpose. So do not allow that to happen. And unite. I mean, if you got 600, 700, 800 people, or even if you got 100 people, or even 50 people that can unite quickly, that are equipped and ready to defend themselves and know how, you can make a huge difference, especially when you can call on a whole bunch of other areas that are doing the same thing. You could completely make all the difference in the defense of rights. There was a reason why the Chinese government said they would never invade America, although they might be thinking about it now. And that was because there was a weapon behind every blade of grass, right? A person with a weapon behind every blade of grass. Well, that deterrent from a criminal government like the Chinese government is the same deterrent that we must have if our government becomes that criminal. So, one more question, then we're done here. Do you know of any communities where people are relocating in order to maintain freedom? We are considering moving. Well, the answer is yes. I know of a lot of communities. But don't come there if you're not liberty-minded. That's right. Because Idaho is clear full of them. Yes. Eastern Oregon and Washington are clear full of them. Montana, Western Montana is clear full of them. Utah, others, there's little pieces. But I'm talking about communities where you can go to a football game without a mask or any trouble, and the football game's still going on. You can root for your team and then enjoy it. The kids are still going to school without mask or even enforcement of it. Now, don't get it wrong. We've had to fight for it. It hasn't been easy. You know, I myself was just incarcerated a couple months ago for 2 days in a row for being at the Capitol building here in Idaho. So it's a battle. There's tyranny here. But guess what? There are also a whole bunch of people who understand really what it takes to defend rights. They are willing to claim them. They're willing to use them and not let others take them from them. And they're willing to defend them, and in many different ways. So thank you for your time. We're now at 8:33. I really appreciate you coming. We are going to continue to do this. We're going to do a live people's meeting in Idaho in 2 weeks, and then we'll do another webcast in 2 weeks. Now remember, I am just a state assistant in Idaho. I'm not running any national show. We're offering this for you so that you can learn and understand. Other state assistants may do the same thing. It may look a lot like this. They may do it in their areas, and this same platform will be available to them. Anyway, thank you for your time, and have a good day. Tell your neighbors about people's rights, and let's start uniting. Thank you.